Good evening and welcome to The Frame, an initiative of Access Framingham. My name is Brendan Fitzpatrick. We begin tonight with the ongoing conversation regarding school safety here in the city, as the Framingham School Committee received a presentation from Framingham High School's Student Advisory Committee last Wednesday on the matter. 2 surveys were sent out to students at the high school recently, one in mid-December and another in early March, to compile data on safety at FHS. Just over 1,000 students, or about 40% of the student body, responded to the questionnaires in either English, Spanish, or Portuguese. The results from the surveys come as school officials continue their efforts to quell misbehavior at local schools and to make students feel safe. All survey questions were optional, as some students said they did not want more strict policies as a result of their answers. Student Advisory Committee Chair Jordan Cohen told the school committee at the Memorial Building that across both surveys, around 9.5% of students who replied feel unsafe in one capacity or another.
While there are under 10% of students that feel either unsafe or very unsafe, I do want to acknowledge that every student who is feeling unsafe is an issue, and our goal should all be to make every student at least safe and hopefully to get to very safe answers.
The data showed that, generally speaking, students at Framingham High feel more safe in the classroom and on the bus, but less safe in the bathroom and the school's hallways. Just over half of the respondents said they knew an adult faculty member that they trusted to talk about safety with, while nearly 28% said that they did not. Close to 24% of those who took the survey said campus safety monitors and student resource officers from the police department improve their sense of safety. 18.5% did not feel the same way. Just a third believe behavior is often under control at Framingham High School, and only about a fifth said they affirmatively believe that FHS does enough to prevent bullying. With that, the advisory committee reported that about half of the respondents to the surveys said their learning ability has been negatively impacted on some occasions due to misbehavior, while over 75% said they do not believe that those issues are being curbed in spite of the school's efforts. School Committee Clerk Ricardo Robles of District 1 agreed with one of the key findings from the Student Advisory Committee's research, that more communication on the steps being taken to address these problems is needed.
If I knew some of these things, even as a parent, that would increase my sense of safety as I walk into the school.
City officials and FHS staff members said they will continue their efforts in solving these challenges, planning public meetings, reviewing current policies, and seeking additional professional help were just some of the actions they mentioned during Wednesday's meeting. The School Advisory Committee also mentioned that they'll keep reaching out to the high school student body for feedback. Meanwhile, local and state officials gathered at Mary Dennison Park on Tuesday for a groundbreaking ceremony, marking another step towards the completion of a large-scale renovation project. The plan has been in development since 2014, but Framingham officials are planning on finishing the work in 2025. Mayor Charlie Sisitsky spoke to attendees at Tuesday's ceremony as he gave thanks for support from regional stakeholders throughout the process in order to ensure that contamination problems at Mary Dennison Park have been addressed and that the park can become a hub for community recreation.
This is just an example of what you can accomplish when the private sector works with the public sector, the state sector works with the local government, and we all cooperate and get things done.
The scope of work for the new Mary Dennison Park features a multi-use field with synthetic turf, a softball field with natural turf, a new splash pad and playground, parking for more than 100 vehicles, updated utilities, and more. The project is expected to cost about $43 million, though the city will have some extra help on that front. Avery Dennison Corp. will be contributing money during the process, while the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection and MassWorks have both offered grants to Framingham related to the renovation. Bonnie Heipel is the commissioner of Mass DEP.
Redevelopment of this brownfield site in particular is an opportunity to right a historic wrong and create a public resource for all to enjoy. This will be a focal point of the neighborhood in a few short months/years, and hopefully a point of pride for the city of Framingham for generations to come.
From now until Thursday, April 11th, comments from Framingham residents are being accepted on the Section 108 Loan Guarantee Program application for the downtown relocation of Seabra Foods. Section 108 is a low-cost program from the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development aimed at boosting economic and housing developments in low to moderate income areas. An application for a loan to cover renovation costs for Seabra Foods' new site downtown has been submitted, as the supermarket is slated to move into 35 Concord Street, which is the former Salvation Army building. The plan for that new Seabra site is to feature 9 apartment units on the second floor, which will be intended to be rented out to employees of the supermarket. Anyone with any comments or questions on the Section 108 application can submit them to the city's Planning and Community Development Division at the Memorial Building, or they can email prcostadesa@framinghamma.gov. Framingham City Council Chair Phil Ottaviani has named the members of a pair of ad hoc committees to address local infrastructure. District 2's Brandon Ward will be the chair of the City Council's Capital Projects and Facilities Ad Hoc Committee, as District 1's Christine Long and District 3's Adam Steiner will join him. The group will help inform decisions related to those matters. Meanwhile, Long will join District 5's Novel Alexander and at-large councillor Janet Liam Bruno in the new Double Polls Ad Hoc Committee. Chaired by Alexander, that group will work alongside utility companies to bring the number of double poles in Framingham down. For more details on the stories you've seen tonight and more, visit our website, www.theframe.news. Need to know updates on municipal matters and additional stories that matter to your community can be found there. Subscribe to our email newsletter as well to make sure that you don't miss anything that The Frame has to offer online. And also, if you've got a tip for us, you're more than welcome to reach out to our tip line. You can send an email to theframe@accessfram.tv, or you can call 508-216-0003 to leave a voicemail message. We're going to take a short break now, but when we return, a profile on the Cushing Memorial Chapel, as preparations to celebrate its 80th anniversary are underway. We took a look at the history of the chapel and the park it's located at, as well as the future of the site. Stick around. The Frame will be back after this.
Julie was always a voracious reader. She'd carry 2 novels on an airplane because she'd read one on a 3-4 hour ride. And at some point, I began to notice that she would read a page and couldn't remember what she had just read, and she'd have to go back and read it again.
I don't remember much these days after I read, but less does for me, and I love it.
I felt accomplished after I got my diploma. Made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back to The Frame, as it's time now for our weekly focus. For many Framingham residents, Cushing Memorial Park is their go-to spot to take a nice walk or get some fresh air. And yet there's more to explore beyond the nearly 70-acre space if you take a look at the history of the grounds itself. Beginning in 1943, construction commenced on a 100-acre military hospital, which would support thousands of sick and wounded soldiers returning from their service overseas during World War II. Much has changed at Cushing since then, but vigorous efforts to preserve the historical significance of the area by local stakeholders, particularly state legislators and members of veterans groups, have stood the test of time. The Cushing Memorial Chapel is the ultimate example of those endeavors coming to fruition. Access Framingham recently hosted a panel of individuals who were directly involved with the chapel's restoration in the late 1980s and 90s. The Frame's Mackenzie Wright has the story.
There were animals running around inside.
Yeah, there was raccoons in there, and the roof was leaking.
Everything was falling apart. A lot of stuff got wet. The ceilings got wet in the back section. We took everything out completely, dug up the ground and put new plumbing in. Then we moved in, did the rooms on the opposite side.
It was a labor of love for Kenny, Jim, and just a handful of others who volunteered hours of their time to restore the Cushing Memorial Chapel.
Every aspect of that renovation has a story to it. And the reason is, it's not like we were building a school and, you know, we're going to build, what do schools cost today? 200, I don't know what they cost, millions and millions of dollars. And we didn't have that. So everything was there was a roadblock for us every time between the state purchasing issues and things like that. We had to negotiate or do it ourselves.
It was because of their unwavering perseverance and hard work that the chapel was literally saved from demolition. Kenny, Jim, and their team's restoration was just one chapter in the chapel's long history since its creation 8 decades ago. It's one of only a few buildings still standing from the original military hospital that opened its doors in 1944.
The German prisoners and Italian prisoners of war were bussed in every morning from Fort Devens in Air.
Right.
The German troops actually did the waxing of the floors, the laundry, and all the necessary supplies, and etc., and planted the trees there.
They did all the work around the grounds.
And
took
who
care of
actually built the chapel?
Well, the POW, Italian POWs built it.
At the start of World War II, the United States War Department acknowledged that more military hospitals were needed to care for sick and wounded troops returning from the conflict. Cushing's central location within the greater New England area was ideal, as construction on the medical facility began in 1943. Following its completion, nearly 14,000 soldiers were treated at the hospital, which specialized in neurological wounds. In fact, the facility was named after the World War I Army surgeon Dr. Harvey Cushing, who was a neurosurgery pioneer. Medical care continued at Cushing even after World War II ended. Wounded veterans of the Korean conflict were also treated at the facility before it eventually became a geriatric hospital in 1957. It remained one of the largest employers in Framingham for years, until efforts to renovate the facility fell apart at the hands of a crumbling economy. The doors to the hospital closed in 1991.
If you think of the number of people in those eras, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, into the 90s, that either worked there, had family members that were there, it was a very large connection that was very real to the community.
John Stefanini, who was a state representative at the time, says there were countless ideas of what to do with the space, from turning it into a golf course to affordable housing. There were even efforts to redo the facility into a state-of-the-art geriatric center.
We held community meetings at St. Andrew's Church, and we filled the place, more than 100 people, and we would meet regularly to talk about the future of the facility. People cared deeply about what happened to the place, and there were very passionate views, which is why Dante DeFazio's admonishment, do nothing, was so profound, which is that everybody stepped away from their primary goal to leave it alone, and it became a place. I mean, I'm at Cushing several times a week, and no matter what time of day it is, it's filled with people enjoying the walking trails and around and walking their dogs.
Let it be. That was the consensus. The brick and mortar of Cushing Hospital was eventually demolished, making way for the open space we see at the park today. According to Stefanini, the state originally wanted to demolish everything. But here, the chapel stands strong, with efforts to preserve its legacy continuing today. Earlier this year, Mayor Charlie Sisitsky announced the reactivation of the Cushing Memorial Chapel Advisory Committee. In addition to planning an 80th anniversary celebration, the group will also be required to, quote, review needed repairs to the 80-year-old chapel.
The chapel is just a spectacular memorial to the veterans and the people that have gone through there, and a great community resource. The person who saved Cushing Chapel was the community.
Yeah,
it was.
Everybody.
Cushing was such an integral part of the community that it was important for the community. We were very lucky to be able to have preserved the legacy and the park.
The chapel, which is currently owned by the city, often hosts special services to honor local vets. Wedding ceremonies are also facilitated there, as the space is available to rent for functions year-round. For more information regarding the events at the Cushing Memorial Chapel, you can search for it on the city's website, www.framingham.ma.gov. If you're heading out to get out and stretch your legs at Cushing Memorial Park this weekend, it's looking like you'll have a decent forecast to do so. Friday calls for mostly cloudy skies with a chance of showers earlier in the day, highs in the upper 40s and lows in the mid-30s. For Saturday, though, you can expect sunshine with highs in the low 50s and lows in the mid-30s, and maybe a little breezy at times on Saturday with the potential for wind gusts as high as 35 miles an hour. A partly sunny forecast for Easter Sunday, highs in the mid-50s and lows in the mid-30s then. Coming up next on The Frame, a preview of some fun weekend events in the city, as well as a heads up regarding local road work. That's just ahead, but first, we'd like to remind you that The Frame is an initiative of Access Framingham, your local community media center located along Vernon Street. It's thanks to AFTV that we're able to present The Frame to you every week. Access Framingham has been promoting local media for years and has also worked to preserve pieces of our local history through the camera lens. Let's take a look. Welcome back in. Let's see what else is happening across Framingham as residents in the Mount Wade area are being advised that water main work will begin in the neighborhood on Monday, April 1st, and that isn't a joke for the record. Roughly 2,700 feet of water main will be upgraded. DPW crews will be working alongside stretches including Mount Wade Ave, Dunning Ave, Chautauqua Ave, and Sherwin Terrace. Temporary piping and hoses will be installed along the local streets as detours will be in place and water service will be interrupted at times. Anyone with any questions on water service are advised to contact the city's water department at 508-532-6050. On-street parking will not be permitted in the Mount Wade area on weekdays between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. while the work is being carried out. The project is scheduled to take about 10 weeks to finish. Drivers around Cedar Street should know that milling on the stretch will also begin on Monday and run through Friday, April 5th. As a result, detours and one-way traffic on Cedar Street, starting from Winthrop Street, will be in place, while parking will not be permitted on Cedar from 7 to 3 during the project. If you're sticking around in Framingham on Saturday, there's no shortage of events happening in the city. We mentioned in last week's episode that a pair of meetings on potential community gardens at Roosevelt Park and Bates Road Park were set to be held last Saturday. They've since been moved to this Saturday, the 30th. The first meeting will run from 1 to 2 p.m. at Roosevelt Park, and the second will be held at Bates Road Park from 3:30 to 4:30. The rain location will be Loring Arena. Speaking of the arena, it will be the site of the 14th edition of the Battle of the Badges hockey game on Saturday. First responders will take to the ice as the Framingham Police Department and Fire Department face off for bragging rights. Members of the public are invited to watch the game in person. The puck will drop at Loring at 2:30 p.m. We would love to hear about your experience at the Battle of the Badges. If you do attend, reach out to us on social media. You can tag us on Instagram and X at @FrameNews_. Follow us there for daily updates too. Also, subscribe to the Access Framingham YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to be notified when new Frame episodes go up each week. Check out our Facebook page as well by simply searching for The Frame. Framingham's Earth Day Festival is taking place at the Center Common on Saturday, April 20th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and planners are asking members of the community to prepare now. Residents are asked to save a number of items that can be recycled at the event, namely K-cups and coffee pods, as well as rechargeable batteries, solo cups, CDs, plastic bags, contact lenses, and more. A recycling station will be present at the festival in order to ensure that these items are properly disposed of and recycled. A full list of acceptable items for recycling, as well as more details on the Earth Day Festival, can be found at framinghamearthday.org. And finally tonight, Metro West Medical Center has announced that their lab hours have been extended. Patients are advised that their laboratory services will now be open until 5:30 p.m. on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. The labs will still open at 7 a.m. Mondays through Saturdays, and they'll remain closed on Sundays. More information on lab services can be found at www.mwmc.com. That's going to do it for this week's Framingham News in Focus. For all of us here at The Frame, we'd like to thank you for tuning in tonight. I'm Brendan Fitzpatrick. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.